Hello and welcome to Gower College Swansea. This is the A-level music subject. So this little presentation will give you a rundown of all of the contents of the AS and the A2 syllabus of the current qualification in music. So the course components are very similar to the GCSE that many of you will have completed. At AS level, you have your three main components with the same weightings as it would have been at GCSE, 30% for performing, 30% for composing, and 40% for appraising. At A2 level, in the second year, you do have the opportunity to specialise in one of those practical elements of the course, in either performing or composing, whereas the appraising element of the course remains fixed. So at AS level, in your first year, these are the requirements for the course in respect of performance. So you're required to perform a recital consisting of a minimum of 2 pieces, either as a soloist or as part of an ensemble. I would always advocate performing a solo recital because it's much easier to prepare and it's a bit more examiner friendly. You are able to perform as an ensemble, but obviously rehearsal time is a little bit more tricky to facilitate. Performances must last a minimum of 6 to 8 minutes, so that could be 2 longer pieces, it could be 4 or 5 shorter pieces. So long as it's a minimum of 2 and falls in that timeline, that's absolutely fine. As it does say in the next bullet point, if you go over the 8 minutes, there is no penalty, but there is a penalty if you perform fewer than 6 minutes. The expected standard for performance at AS level is grade 5. Now, lots of you may be performing in advance of that level. Some of you may be performing just below grade 5. That's absolutely fine. What happens is that a raw mark will be calculated and then adjusted accordingly. So if you perform above the expected standard, your mark will be inflated a little to reflect the difficulty that you're performing, or vice versa if you're performing below that standard. For composition, at AS, you have to complete 2 compositions. The first is a piece in a Western classical style, so either in a Baroque, a classical, or a Romantic style, and that would be in response to a brief that's been set by the exam board. Now, everyone's experience of composition in schools will vary because schools have different resources, different expertise. Some teach composition brilliantly, some teach listening brilliantly, some teach performance brilliantly, some have fantastic computers, some have iPads, some just have instruments. We've got to make sure we all come back to a more traditional outlook for that first composition. The second composition is a free composition in the sense that you are able to set your own brief for that. But that can be for any combination of instruments in any style and executed by any means and using any software. Some examples of compositions that we've had in recent years are as follows. So this is an example of a string quartet that was written by a candidate a year or so ago in response to a brief. So you can see there are interesting textures there, nice balanced phrases, and I will of course be able to show you how to use lots of these techniques. And that will carry on then into the next section. Let's listen to this one. This is an example of a piano solo that's been written again in response to one of those WJC briefs. So this brief was to write a short sonatina, a short sonata form piece for any instrument or combination of instruments you deemed appropriate. So this candidate wrote for solo piano, and it's a very idiomatic classical piano sonatina, and of course I'll show you how you can execute a piece of this style as well. Okay, and things like key changes here, I'll show you how to do those effectively, and so on. The last example I've got here is an example of a free composition, and in this instance this is an example of a film composition. Lots of the software we have, we're able to drop videos in, and then you can sync your music to the video, which will create a more powerful outcome, I suppose. Let's have a quick listen to this. So this candidate chose this animated film and decided to write a fairly contemporary score to match this atmospheric scene. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what you can do for composition. The appraising is obviously the big step up, and it's the one that can appear most daunting. So there are two main areas of study. The first area of study is the Western classical tradition, and our focus within that is we look in depth at religious choral music from 1730 to 1800, and the set work that we study in detail is the Mozart Requiem, and we look at those opening 5 movements in detail, and it's a fantastic work to study. It's the last work that Mozart composed. In fact, he didn't finish it. He died before he completed it, and the whole work is shrouded in mystery. Why did he die? Was anyone responsible for his death? Was the people who were responsible involved in the commissioning of the work? It's a piece that's shrouded in mystery, and the music itself is fantastic. So a really good one to look at in more depth there. The second area of study we look at it in the first year is musical theatre. We don't have any set works as such, but we do have to look at the styles of those 4 composers: Cole Porter, Richard Rodgers, Claude Michel Schoenberg, and Andrew Lloyd Webber. So lots of you will be familiar with certain works by those composers. Okay, the Mozart, just so you're aware of the type of analysis that awaits us. This is an example from the Dies Irae of the Mozart Requiem, so you get an idea of the type of scores that we're going to be analysing during the course. So we are going to be required to analyse all of these sections. Okay, so it gives you an idea of what follows. Okay, so on to the second year of the course and how the changes appear. Now, I mentioned at the beginning you got that option to specialise in one of the practical areas in the second year between performing and composing. So how that looks in a bit more detail. If you specialise in one, you do a reduced option in the other. So the 2 options in performance, if you do the reduced option, you will see it looks very similar to what the requirements were in the first year. A recital consisted of minimum of 2 pieces, lasting 6 to 8 minutes. The only difference now in the second year is the expected standard is grade 6 as opposed to grade 5. That's the only difference. But should you wish to do more performance, which lots of students, the majority of students, tend to opt for this, is to do an extended option. So that rather than 2 pieces, it's a minimum of 3 pieces, and those performances should last a minimum of 10 to 12 minutes. Again, that expected standard is grade 6. Most students elect for that option. If you do the extended performance, then of course you would do the reduced composition, and you'll see there the composition requirements in year 2 are exactly the same as the first year. 2 pieces, one in response to a brief set by the board, and that one in a Western classical style, and then secondly, a free composition. The mark scheme is a little bit different in the second year because, of course, they're expecting a more mature response as it's your second year of study. But in terms of the quantity of work doesn't change. But if you wish to do the extended performance and the reduced performance, the composition will look like this. You'll have 3 compositions to do. Again, one in response to a brief in a classical style, a free composition, but this one composition has to reflect a different area of study. So that might be music in the 20th and 21st centuries. It might be jazz. It might be rock and pop. It might be musical theatre. It might be orchestral music. So there are plenty of options to choose from. And lastly, then, another free composition lasting 2 minutes duration. Some people would not entertain doing the extended composition at all, but if you're one of those students who doesn't like performance exam scenarios and gets quite nervous and thinks, well, anything could happen in the day, this might be an option for you because you've got a little bit more control about the work that you're submitting because you only submitted a course when you're ready, within the deadline, of course. So finally, to the A2 appraising. We build on the work that we've completed at AS level. So again, we look at religious choral music, rather than looking at 1730 to 1800, which encompassed the end of the Baroque period and the beginning of the classical period. We now look at 1800 to 1890, which is the end of the classical period and into the majority of the Romantic era. And the work we look at in detail is the Requiem Mass composed by Giuseppe Verdi, a huge mass in the canon and a fantastic one to analyse. We have two further areas of study to look at, music in the 20th and 21st centuries. We have a new section to look at, and we focus on Impressionism. So we look at three pieces, two by Debussy and one by Maurice Ravel, listed there. And then we build on our musical theatre knowledge from the first year by looking at some American musical theatre, focusing on the composers Stephen Sondheim and Stephen Schwartz. I must mention Alumni, because we're very, very proud of our students in Gower College Swansea and where they progress to study music. You can see that there's a full list from those who left us. The dates on the left-hand side are dates of departure from Gosainen and where those people have gone on to study. So you can see from 2018 through to 2021, we've sent these students off to study music in a range of very, very reputable institutions, from Cambridge University to the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, to the Royal Academy of Music in London, to Guildford School, to King's College London, to Birmingham Conservatoire, Trinity Laban, Goldsmiths London, all of these different places. So we have a very, very good relationship with universities and conservatoires throughout the UK. And these places are very much aware of our name as well. So when applicants make these applications to the unis, they know the name Gower College Swansea and know that they've been prepared adequately. So that is the course in a nutshell of A-level music in the AS and the A2 years. If you have any further questions, please contact me directly. My name is Jonathan Rogers. I'm the curriculum leader for music based in the Gosainen campus, and my email address is j.rogers@gcs.ac.uk. Hope to hear from you soon.